We have to talk about what is happening inside the MAGA movement right now, because the right wing is really eating itself alive. And it's a direct consequence of the choices they made years ago. Now, there is this group called Groypers. These are white nationalist, America First kind of nativists who follow, to a degree, Holocaust denying anti Semite Nick Fuentes. And they are tearing apart the establishment conservatives. Now, Nick Fuentes, you might remember, was once welcomed to dinner by Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Trump later denounced him or said he doesn't know anything about it or whatever. And Fuentes now represents a faction that is cannibalizing figures like Ben Shapiro and Ted Cruz and others who kind of spent years really building the modern right. And the funny thing about this is that we warned them that this would happen. You know, for a decade, we've been sounding the alarm. This is the direction Trumpism is heading. The extremism that is festering is going to become a problem even for them. And for a decade, the right would just laugh it off and they would go, you guys on the left are hysterical. You're crying liberal tears. Everything's fine. These groypers aren't going to build any significant power. And so they made a choice. They embraced Trump. Despite it being pretty damn clear who Trump was. They bent the knee. They thought we can control this so it doesn't become a catastrophe. And they were catastrophically wrong. And so now we have a conservative establishment that thought they could ride this tiger of Trumpism and populism into a movement that they would recognize. And they thought we can use these forces just for the things we like. It'll be used for tax cuts. It'll be used for judges. You know, Trump will push ahead regulations, deregulation. But they could keep the wackiness at arm's length. They could keep the Fuentes and all of that stuff at arm's length. But history tells us that this is not how radicalization works. Once you allow a movement that foments conspiracy theories and platforms voices that overtly traffic in dehumanization and bigotry becomes acceptable as long as it's the right bigotry, you can lose control of where it goes. Vivek Ramaswamy learned this when, as a Hindu, he was recently confronted by Groyper types saying, wait a second, Hindu? I don't think so. And the right is now fracturing over how explicitly authoritarian and bigoted they really should be. That is different from a normal political disagreement. And this is working to further radicalize the base. We have seen J.D. Vance attacking Nick Fuentes, and we've seen, I mean, the Shapiro Tucker Carlson thing is completely blowing up. You've now got Mark Levin attacking Tucker Carlson as well. Listen to this.
I got a very strange text this morning from Tucker Carlson, 10:16 a.m. I'll read it to you for verbatim. Good morning,
Verbatim.
He writes to me. The leadership at Turning Point has asked me to debate you at their event in Scottsdale in December. I'm happy to do it, and I hope you'll agree as well. Beyond the personal insults, which I'll try to keep to a minimum, there are real and important ideological differences between us, and I think the country would benefit from an extended conversation about them. So again, I hope you'll accept. Let me know. Thanks. The guy is desperate. He's taken a hit on his podcast. He's fighting like hell for his career. He's fighting like hell for his reputation. People are awakening to what scum he actually is.
Oh, boy.
And he thinks I'm going to platform him? He thinks I'm going to help him kick up his podcast ratings? What would Charlie say? What would Rush say? What would any rational response? Here it is. I wrote him the following. My family and I want nothing to do with you. What you've become, your vile libels against my faith, millions of Christians, and in my view, what you seek to do to our country. There's nothing to debate. You're a Nazi promoter. You're the modern-day David Duke.
All right. So Mark Levin is not happy with Tucker Carlson. And what we see here, and I hesitate to call any of these people moderates, but compared to some of the extremists they are, when you lose ground to extremists, the spectrum shifts to the right and the Overton window moves further towards fascism. And I think Democrats really need to understand what this means for us. We have our own fractures, right? We've got The litmus test leftists demanding purity, and the moderates and progressives are fighting over strategy and identity politics and all of that. Our infighting is also real, but there's a really important asymmetry here. Even our messiest internal conflicts don't typically involve whether democracy itself should continue or which ethnic groups deserve rights. And I believe that the nature of the fracture does matter. And so the danger, and again, this is all happening on the right, but I think the right's going to have to do what they're going to do. We also need to just analyze it for ourselves on the left. The danger is that if we get absorbed in our own intramural squabbles, the right can end up normalizing authoritarianism. And while we debate, is a candidate progressive enough? Are we messaging correctly on trans issues or whatever? The right is mainstreaming voices that want to fundamentally dismantle democratic institutions. And so I think the only, the cautionary tale for us is, let's not get so consumed by our own purity tests that we miss the forest for the trees. And this is the hell that the conservative movement has built for itself. Every single time they dismissed the warnings about how extreme Trumpism was becoming, or they platform conspiracy theorists for ratings or whatever, they were building this monster. And so now you've got people even like Ben Shapiro, who maybe thought that they could kind of court the extremist base without becoming targets. He is learning the hard way that when you feed this beast, it can turn on you. And that is happening at this point in time. So here we are. The extremists they cultivated are more powerful than the establishment that thought they could control them, at least to some degree. And I think it's important to know that this is not really a victory for us. You know, the Groypers aren't better than the establishment conservatives that they're replacing. They are way worse. They're more explicit in their bigotry. They're more openly authoritarian. I believe they're more dangerous to democracy itself. So this is like a lateral move from bad to catastrophic. We should just learn what we can so we don't fall into a similar trap. We want robust debate about policy. We want robust debate about strategy, but we shouldn't be blinded or paralyzed to the existential threat that we are facing from what's happening on the right. The right made their bed by acquiescing to Trump. They normalized extremism. They chose power over principles, and now they're going to have to lie in it. And it turns out the bed is full of scorpions. We need to be smarter and more united because we're all going to be affected by what is taking place here. Let me know if you disagree with my perspective on this. Appreciate you watching. Stick around for this next video, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you actually see our uploads. You can also catch the full podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.